Hello and welcome to Wild Sessions. I'm Henrietta Norton, a parent, nutritional practitioner, author and founder of Wild Nutrition. In this series, I'll be sitting down with some excellent professionals who will share their depth of knowledge and back it all up with practical advice. I'll also be sharing real-life experiences from women and men who have navigated the twists and turns of health at every life stage. So I'm really delighted to be sitting in the kitchen with Katie Rowe-Ham, who is a menopause specialist and fitness coach, and is a very inspiring woman through your life experiences as much as your professional experience.
Yeah.
And I'd love our audience to know a little bit more about how you've come to be where you are and chosen to do what you've done.
How long have they got? I'll start, I guess, from sort of 40, because that is the beginning of the journey to wanting to help women empower themselves when they get to sort of midlife and menopause. But I had my third child, Rupert, actually after 4 miscarriages. So at around about 40, I had Rupert, and I've always loved fitness. Decided there wasn't really anybody out there helping busy women with busy lives work out with kids. But I was like, there needs to be something for women. So I qualified essentially to become a PT whilst Rupert was still really young. And during that time, I started to experience my own issues physically in terms of lack of sleep. But I went to the doctors. I had qualified by this time as a PT. I was doing these Instagram workouts. But there was just something that didn't really tie up. The sort of feeling that I wasn't really myself. And I know for those of us that have had kids, there is definitely that sort of time of transition where we are learning to all work together as a family. But I'd done it with 2, but it just felt really different. And I felt very alone and very invisible. And I was still doing these free online workouts and just sort of carried on as we do again as women, as if everything was fine. But the joint aches and pains were getting worse, the exhaustion was getting worse, and I called up doctors and I wasn't really getting anywhere, to be honest with you. I was sent for ECGs, I was sent for chest x-rays. I was told perhaps I was over-exercising, but deep down I just knew that something wasn't right. And I began to realise actually a lot of what I was experiencing sounded like perimenopause, but there wasn't enough information about how we eat and how we should exercise at that time. And you don't have to exercise differently, but we need to remember our body is changing. And actually, as soon as I got to grips with the fact that I was perhaps on that perimenopause journey, I actually looked into taking HRT. I really looked at my diet and exercise and the impact that that perhaps was having on my body, and looked at what we needed to do as women at that age so that before we get to that point, your body is ready and stronger and you're exercising the right way and you've put in those little lifestyle tweaks. And actually, the earlier you put those in, the easier it can be.
And that's entirely our philosophy around women's health. The preparation for menopause starts at puberty. The preparation for fertility starts before puberty. So it's like building up a bank account. You've got to put those lifestyle interventions in prior to being in the situation so it's not as reactive.
Had I known at 35 that weight training was going to be key in terms of my muscles and my bones, I probably would have done it then. I think that we grew up thinking that running was the right way, restricting diets and all of this sort of stuff to be a shape or a size that we should be. And I think that's the other thing, that when we get to this point in our lives, we've got to stop chasing that 30-year-old self and we have to start future-proofing our bodies. And like you say, that starts really at puberty. You know, I've got a daughter and I want her to think about all the things that she's putting in her body now, how she's eating, how she's exercising, and how that will help her at those times of the month. And then as she gets older with pregnancy. But this is the thing, there is so much information given to women around puberty and around pregnancy, yet we suddenly get to menopause and it's only now that the conversations are happening.
I think there's a lot of information and it's almost like people can be aware that they might be in this stage, but they don't know what to do for them.
Yeah.
And I still feel like there's that void of understanding your own body. And I think you touched on something as well about your relationship and the mindset towards exercise and a healthy relationship with eating, which needs to be embedded as early as possible. Because I do feel that somehow exercise and eating have almost become commodities for us to control. And then we get to a stage in our life where we feel very out of control and our body does start to change. And it's really important to adjust the mindset that your body is going to be changing in a positive way.
No, completely. Like I think that we have to accept that there are going to be those changes, and actually movement and eating for mobility, for strength and for longevity so has to outweigh the aesthetic benefits. But it is really difficult because a lot of us do struggle with that side, like you're saying. Actually, I did a post recently on these before and after fitness regimes that people go for, and you can't see the before and after of what's going on inside of your body. You can't see what you're doing for your heart, for your bones, for your joints, for your mental health, you know, everything, circulation, all of it is so improved. And that's what we have to try to get women to focus on. And if you do, if weight loss or fat loss is a goal, that will naturally happen and it will become sustainable.
The research that I've seen around exercise is how important consistency is.
Yeah.
And I think exercise becomes especially important around perimenopause because so much of it is around how our management of inflammation can increase our body's ability to go through those transitions with more fluidity.
Yeah.
So those very erratic symptoms that we might get during the menopause can be tempered more with exercise, just from that pure mechanism that we can't even see inside.
Yeah, it's all about the hormone health. And like you say, with information goes into your guts, it's everyone. Actually, that ties in with the decline in estrogen.
Yes,
because that's what affects those markers. So yeah, you can manage that really well by good diet and exercise. But again, like you're saying, with that consistency, that doesn't mean 7 days a week with no rests and powering your body, because then obviously that affects your cortisol levels as well, which gives you even more stress on the body. So that was one of the things that actually I definitely try to encourage women to do, is to stop thinking that every session you do has to be an hour or sweaty. Actually, you will be doing more damage to your body and you are going to be prone to injury if you carry on working out like that. And you can do a really effective workout in 35 to 40 minutes, which seems achievable, and that's it. If it's achievable, it becomes consistent.
Yeah. And that's what I've really liked about your approach. It is very realistic. You are in a home environment. Would you say that the sweet spot is 30 minutes? Is there an equation that works for most women?
I think the most important thing is finding something you love and doing it. Even if you can only find 10 minutes, do it. Actually, so government guidelines are that's 150 minutes of exercise a week.
Yeah.
And actually, if you break that down, that's 30 minutes a day. Funny enough, since I changed the way I was training from the age of 40, I've run my fastest half marathon. And actually, the recovery, weirdly, at 40 was easier than it was when I was younger, because I didn't just power, because I lifted, because you're increasing that mobility, you're getting the synovial fluid, you're getting your joints working. And actually, because I'd started to think about what I was putting into my body, how I was eating, that helps with the recovery. Whereas I think when you're slightly younger, we do bash our bodies, we get up, we run, we drink. But definitely from 35, we know our muscle mass decreases, our bones are breaking down at a bigger rate than we're building them up. A third of women have hip fractures over the age of 50. So it's really important that we think about lifting weights. Now, had I started lifting weights earlier, possibly stopped drinking earlier, I may not have been in a position where I was sitting here today at 46 with osteopenia. But so what I know is I have to carry on lifting my weights, but not all the time, maybe once a week, running, walking. You can't reverse osteopenia, but I can prevent osteoporosis.
It's also about what we can do right now, with where we are right now. And as you can say, there's a huge amount, even with osteopenia, that you can actually continue to do to support your body with that.
Yeah, and supplements in terms of vitamin D.
And also the impact that stress has on bone density as well. So we know that that speeds up that wear stage and slows down the repair stage. So really important as well to make sure that you're supporting your adrenal systems, your HPA access with magnesium. Ashwagandha is a beautiful herb for that.
Yes,
so that you're...
I need to do more research into that. We'll have a conversation about that, because that is one that lots of people talk about,
You know, so the nutrients that support bone density are really important, but it's also looking at what's happening holistically in the body that's fueling that process. And stress is a massive one for that. And that's where I think getting that balance, which you already begin to talk about, the balance between high intensity or aerobic exercise and then more restorative exercise and weight bearing exercise. Getting that balance is so incredibly important and feels more important at this stage of our life.
And it's more achievable really as well, because I think actually you don't get bored, and that's not to say to do something different all the time, because
that's
you
really
need to
important.
get
Certainly really important for me.
Yeah, it really is. That's why with weights, a lot of my clients say, will I bulk?
Yeah.
You really won't bulk. But when I'm lifting weights or when I'm teaching weights and you're saying to women, right, could you go a little bit heavier? You know, are you at that point where you're just having to, that last rep is just a little bit of a struggle? There is suddenly no thought for anything other than your body moving and actually how strong it is. And I leave that weight session and I think, I am strong, and you can't see strong, but you're feeling it, and actually you feel like you've got the day. For me, that's self-care. For 25 minutes, I have had that time to myself. And that's what it's about. It's actually about empowering yourself and knowing that you are so much stronger than actually you give yourself credit for. And that's what happens so often when I think women are there and they're faced with anything in life. We always question ourselves before we even tried. And so it's just going, okay, if you've got someone encouraging you to do it, and then you do and you achieve it, it's great. And that then I hope plays out in their day-to-day lives. But I hopefully have encouraged a lot more women to live when you don't bulk.
It's really amazing, because actually I think you're breaking a bias there as well. You know, I think that there is this sense that that's a very masculine world.
Yeah.
What would be your recommendation for people to buy some weights? And
on the Owning Your Menopause, which I know we're going to come to at some point, there is a 4-week beginner's guide to lifting weights. So get some 3 kgs and some 5 kgs. And that, whilst that might seem heavy, you will progress very quickly. You're not going to bulk, but you're going to build that strong, lean muscle, which we need.
Yeah. It plays a function. It's less about how it looks and more about what it's functionally doing for the body, which is so incredibly important. Our muscles start to produce a small amount of a type of estrogen as well. So we need that in the same ways that we need to have a little bit more adipose tissue in some areas of our body when we're going through that menopause stage, because we need that endogenous production of the form of estrogen that supports our brain, supports our bones.
That's one of the questions I get asked by a lot of women, that visceral fat around the middle. And because we've got that lack of estrogen and our body searches, and sadly it picks up a lower quality form of estrogen, and that's where the fat deposits do sit around the middle area. But again, actually lifting weights, whilst your body is repairing itself, you will continue to burn calories after you've lifted. If you are running, you only burn calories really at that moment in time. So it's sort of the after effect. You will continue to be burning calories for 24 hours after a strength workout or a HIIT workout. But again, I do like to slightly stay away from the HIIT element. And it's funny because that's where I started, actually, when I hadn't started this menopause journey, because that was what everyone was doing. And then realised that actually that isn't the most sustainable, healthy, best way to work out once you hit this midlife phase. Yes, it works, but again, we're talking about the future. It works possibly at that moment in time, but it doesn't become sustainable for your joints or for your cortisol levels.
But I think that's where you're brilliant, because it evolves with where you're at professionally and personally. So you'll bring that lived experience through it, and actually it's very similar to how Wild Nutrition started and how I formulate it. You know, you can read all the research papers and it can say you need to do X and X and X and X. But actually, when you've got the lived experience, when you're going through it, or you're working with women who are going through it and really immersing yourself in their experience of it, it really does change the information that you want to give. And they can be at odds sometimes.
No, completely. And I think that is sort of the nature of what I love doing, because I also think it's really important. We're sitting here and we're talking about exercise, but actually midlife, menopause, or just midlife, comes with its own set of challenges that don't allow us the time to necessarily be able to do that. You've got kids, you've got family, you might have elderly or sick parents, you've got households to run, you've got jobs. And going back to that to-do list, where do we feature on it? And we never do. We always put ourselves last. And I think that plays into a lot of people's mental state when they approach menopause as well, because your body's changing. All of these things are going on. You might not understand what's going on. Your world is just carrying on in front of you. I think for a time, I felt very invisible, even in my own home. Yet there was so much noise from everybody, because you're still doing everything for everybody. It was like being in a WhatsApp group that you're not slightly part of, you're just watching it from the outside.
They must just keep on coming through.
But and everyone else is having a really good time, and you're not. If you feel like that, it is okay, but it can get better. Because again, it's focusing on going, okay, I do feel like that. How can I get out of this hole realistically? Because a lot of us might not have the time to do that or the finances to be able to necessarily do these things. But you can go for a walk. That is free. Outdoors is free. And that's why I sort of like doing the home workout stuff, because you can work out from home. You don't need an expensive gym membership. You know, you can eat well if you think about it. If you want to do supplements and things like that, buy the right ones, because again, there's a massive choice. And I guess that's where you do your research into what should I do from people that have lived it, because that is the best way.
And speaking openly and sharing experiences, because I think that's a relatively new thing as well for women at this stage, is that it just wasn't really spoken about. So to opening the dialogue, it can be really individual. So getting the advice of you as an exercise expert, or, you know, for us, that's why we provide the nutritional service, is because actually sometimes you do need that individual support. I'd really like to ask you about owning your menopause, because I think it's fantastic. And this is something that is accessible for people financially, conveniently. It's a really accessible program that can really help women. So tell me a little bit more about it.
It's taken me a while to get there, and it's still evolving, I'm sure, as you know. With a business, you set something up and there's always something new or some other way you want to do it. And so this is evolving, because basically what I wanted to build was a community of women who can support each other, and that's everybody that's in the community. There's not one person in charge. This is about everybody owning their menopause, and it's through exercise, nutrition, sleep. So I was obviously offering the free Instagram workouts, but I wanted it to be a bit more bespoke and for people to be able to have contact with myself. And sort of through that, I brought on 2 other trainers as well, because actually not everybody wants to lift. There's bar on there and there's Pilates. So it was a way of giving women 6 days a week of live workouts every morning. So we have a Monday through Saturday, various different workouts between myself, lovely Sarah and Zoe. And then I've also got a menopause GP. And so lovely Katie Armstrong comes on, and she is, again, we've slightly changed the format, but she's going to be doing 3 videos. So on every Tuesday, there'll be like a masterclass. And then once a month, she'll come on and do a live Zoom with whoever wants to join, answer questions. And that's really important, because I feel that people get lost in their journey. They might not be able to get hold of their GP. So actually, if they've got someone they can ask a question to and get an answer within a time frame, that's really, really helpful. Then I've got 2 nutritionists sort of helping at the moment, and I'm about to do a May sort of reset challenge. They will come on and talk every fortnight, just answering questions, giving women some guidance. And we've got a sleep expert. So it's basically like your one-stop shop for menopause, and it's all about how we can empower ourselves and thrive. I don't want us to look at the negative sides of menopause. I want people to kind of go, okay, this is where I'm at. How am I going to feel better? Because I think it's also really important to remember that not everyone can take HRT, and there are a lot of things out there at the moment that, you know, you take your HRT and you're going to be able to exercise and you're going to be able to eat well. You can exercise and eat well before you start taking HRT or the need to take HRT. And actually, if you perhaps start that journey, you might give yourself that best chance of coming to that perimenopause journey feeling strong and fit and healthy. And it's, you know, it's equally about that mental strength, and this community of women. It's great. I love it. We do our workouts in the morning, and there's a sort of text mechanism, and everyone says good morning to each other, and sort of women from all over are building relationships with each other. And we do a live lounge as well once a month, and we just rant and we come on, and that's probably the time when everyone, and we rant about our husbands maybe not understanding it. And
that's a whole different subject as well, isn't it? I think there's a huge amount of empowerment to do there, because I know you've got a supportive partner, I've got a very supportive partner who probably want to know more about it and know how they can support, because a little bit like watching somebody go through childbirth. It's really disempowering to know that somebody is going through a stage of discomfort and change and transition, but not really knowing how to help.
Yeah, that's really, do you know, if I'm really honest about it, it's not embarrassing. But I think at the time when I thought I was going through my perimenopause, and I thought, my God, my husband's going to find me really unattractive, because his connotations of the menopause were that I was old and over the hills and done for.
Time to trade in.
And this is what I really do feel, is that actually from 40, you can completely reframe yourself if you can get a hold of it and come out stronger. Like, I have started a business in my 40s, and I'm well and truly just at the beginning of that journey. And so I don't want women to just sort of think that it's something to be embarrassed of and they need to hide in a corner because they're having symptoms in a workplace as well. And that's where getting the word out there.
Absolutely.
And having these menopause policies in the workplace is huge, because menopause affects everybody. It affects the children, it affects your husband, it affects your colleagues. We have to let everybody know. Because again, when young girls have their periods, they're so proud of it, and they'll boast about it. Yeah, we have these conversations about menopause. It's like, so yeah, I think it might be my menopause. And we're so hushed about it. And it's like, what are we so afraid of? And I think probably because women are now living for 30 years longer, let's start beginning our lives at 40 and change the narrative. And actually, we really can do that. And that's sort of what I wanted Owning Your Menopause to be, was to encourage women, because I have to be honest. But I remember at 42 wanting to drive into a tree, not necessarily to take my own life, but because I wanted someone to look after me.
Yeah.
I was run ragged, and actually we don't need to get to that point if we've got that support system. And I hope that by creating that support system, everyone feels that they're not alone. Everyone's menopause journey is unique, and we will all have different symptoms, but don't be afraid to talk about them, because it's not just hot flushes. And for me, I actually was going to bed and sitting on the end of my bed saying to my husband, if I don't wake up in the morning, tell them it was my heart. I thought I was dying. And I think we do get to that stage again. It's a midlife thing. We're so scared of our kids being left on their own. We're so scared of what happens if we're not here, because we are holding everybody together. We diagnose ourselves. And I thought I had lung cancer. I thought I was having heart attacks every night. And since I have made some massive lifestyle changes, which is not drinking, I do try to eat better. I do love chocolate, which is a terrible thing, and coffee. It's not a terrible thing. Everything in moderation, I know. Those symptoms are so much more manageable. And so it's just knowing that it's a blip and it can get better. And I feel stronger now at 46 than I think I ever did at 30, if I'm honest with you.
I would agree, as somebody who's going through the perimenopausal stage. It's deeply uncomfortable on many, many levels. It is also incredibly, it sounds too trivial to say exciting, but it does feel like there's an opportunity in it as well. There's a recalibration. There's a lot of questioning that is actually really necessary. My concern with the menopause and the amount of exposure or rhetoric it's getting at the moment, conversations that are happening around menopause, is that, and this particularly seems relevant to HRT, is that you just take that and that will make all of those symptoms go away. And actually, maybe those symptoms are there for a reason. Maybe you are feeling anxious and you are feeling burnt out and you are feeling run ragged and you are feeling like you can't sleep properly, because there are actually real issues in your environment that actually need to be worked out.
What you're saying is brilliant. It is a time to be reborn almost again. It's kind of...
absolutely.
And it's exciting.
Reconnected.
It can be exciting. I think that is the word. And I think if we make it exciting for future generations, I think you're right, because actually 40% of women leave their jobs because they don't feel they can cope. But imagine all those incredible CEOs, those women who are top of the company that have had to leave their jobs because there wasn't that support there, or they didn't know. They suddenly had this amazing career, and then they were like, oh my God, I can't do it anymore. As women, we're really good at talking. And I think that is where I probably started to think I was menopausal, but a lot of people would say, and actually this is key to point out, but you're too young. You're 42. What we have to remember is the average age of menopause is 51. You can be perimenopausal for 10 years. So essentially, anywhere around the age of 40, you could be heading through that perimenopause journey. And if you go to your GP, I think if you are under the age of 45, you have to have a blood test. Over the age of 45, they go on your symptoms. But again, that's conflicting amongst surgeries, I know, because there have been women who've been 48 saying to me they've gone to their doctors and their doctors have done blood tests. I'm fine, so they're not going to give me the extra help that I want. What you have to remember is that if you are over the age of 45, you are entitled to go to your GP and say, these are my symptoms, this is what it is, please, I would like to take HRT, or I would like advice on what I can do. Again, if you're under the age of 45 and you are feeling that, I was put on HRT at 44. I did end up having to go privately because my GP wasn't accepting of the fact that I was going through perimenopause, because again, you can still be having periods and be in perimenopause.
Absolutely.
And I think this is the thing, there is so much confusion around it, but women need to know that from the age of 40, I always say, if you are beginning to experience your symptoms, start tracking periods, start tracking your symptoms, because when you do go to your GP, there's nothing more they like than some clear evidence-based information on your cycle, so that they know. Because actually, if you've only got 10 minutes, it's not their fault. You've got to get it all out and say everything in 10 minutes. And if they haven't got an interest in women's health, it's not going to be something that is at the forefront of their mind to diagnose. So just being armed and empowered with all of that information and knowing that you can have your menopause before the age of 40. It's 1 in 100, I think, is before the age of 40. So it just to track, I think, is really key as well.
If only for you as well, to see the patterns, because it's quite interesting when that happens. You can see a pattern evolving that you're like, wow, that's really interesting. So I know that at that time, I need to go more gently with myself because I tend to feel more this or... So I think that's fantastic. And so what I would like to do is just to kind of capture everything that we've spoken about in about 3 sentences, if that's possible. Basically, exercise is really good for you for managing stress,
for your heart, for your joint, for your bones, for your brain, for your mental health.
And then during perimenopause and menopause stages, it becomes more important or equally important. What would you say?
Equally as important, but to think about how you're working out, to think about what it is that you're doing, and that rest really is important. And that can be yoga or Pilates, and I'm not saying that that is not a workout, but just something that gives your body a bit of a break from that heightened intensity, again, raising cortisol levels. And also, if you don't feel like doing something, don't necessarily do it, but go for a walk. Just always try to move.
So 5 days a week, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And that 5 days can be as suits your...
Yeah, I would do 5 days a week. I would often say 2 to 3 days strength training if you can, then walking, cycling, swimming, something that slightly elevates the heart rate. And just be kind to yourself and not beat yourself up and not think that you have to do it. You want to get to a space where you want to do it, that it's not a chore. But yes, 5 days a week, 30 minutes.
And for somebody who doesn't regularly exercise, it's the hard yards at the beginning, isn't it? Forming that habit. And then you mentioned that it becomes sort of almost self-propelling because you start to experience the benefits, whether that's the mental benefits of it or the physical benefits of it. And then that kind of propels you to carry on.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't do a workout this morning just because I wanted to have a slower day. But I was awake at 5:45. My body was like, come on. And only 18 months ago, my body was like, oh, just stay in bed. The mind is amazing at tricking us. And you have to remember, we're not our thoughts. And if you say you're going to do it tomorrow, when you're lying in bed that morning, the chances are you won't. Just start. Exercise is amazing. And actually, once you start exercising, you then start eating well. Again, it just all does tie in together. And you eat well, you exercise well, you exercise, you eat well. It's kind of...
Absolutely.
Yeah. And it is important as well, when you're saying, to track our cycles, because again, the hormones do play out how we feel about exercising. And I mean, this is obviously a conversation for a whole other time, because there is a way of working out around your cycle. When is the optimum time to lift? When is the optimum time to run? All about avoiding injury. And obviously, as we come into our perimenopause journey, we might not know where we are in our cycle. So 1 week you might have gone to the gym, or you might have done a home workout and had all the energy in the world. And then the following week you might not have lifted as heavy as you did the previous week. And then again, as women, we beat ourselves up. Oh, I'm losing strength. It's not going the right way. It's still going the right way. It's just that you're somewhere in your cycle that your body just wants to do something differently. And I think we have to be so much more forgiving of ourselves. The thing is, we always beat ourselves up.
And tuning into our body.
Your perimenopause is always a moving target. For 10 years, it's a moving target. So even if you are on HRT, or even if you're doing the lifestyle changes, you have to tweak those as well. It's not just, here we are, and it's a nice steady 10 years.
Yes.
At times of stress or if things gone on, your estrogen will deplete quicker. So it might be that you have to approach your GP. And I know that I have tweaked my estrogen, the progesterone has changed, the testosterone has changed. It continually needs to be addressed.
Katie, it's been such a pleasure chatting to you. We could carry on, and I'm already thinking I'd love to do one on tracking cycles and exercising specifically during the cycle. But it's been really, really, really helpful, actually, even for me. And I actually see a personal trainer, Giles, who's absolutely brilliant, and I'm lifting weights and I bloody love it.
Yeah, that's right.
And I've never done it before in my life, and I feel brilliant. I do it twice a week. I've never done exercise like it. It's just fantastic. Mentally, physically, it's just brilliant. So I can't recommend it more highly as well. So people can find you on Instagram, Katie FH Fitness.
So yes, Kate RH _fitness, and also then owning your menopause as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you're doing as well, because I think you are busting some myths and giving some really fantastic tools of empowerment to women that are feeling a little bit lost in the wilderness. So
thank you for letting me come talk to you today.
We hope you enjoyed that conversation. Please do let us know what you thought. Rate us on iTunes, follow us, share, and spread the word with others. This has been a Wild Nutrition podcast with Henrietta Norton. It's produced by Phil Bodger. Special thanks to Nina Humphreys, who composed our theme tune, and everyone at Wild Nutrition for their support. You can subscribe to Wild Nutrition Podcast on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. And you can also find us on our website, wildnutrition.com.